Hey friends, welcome to the Raising Boys and Girls podcast. I'm Sissy Goff.
And I'm David Thomas.
And I'm Melissa Trevathan.
And we're so glad you've joined us for this conversation. Let's dive in.
Kimberly Caraway is a mind, brain, and education specialist who works in the integration of cognitive neuroscience and teaching and learning strategies. She holds degrees in cognitive studies and elementary education from Vanderbilt University and in learning and teaching from Harvard University. We are so excited for you to listen to part A of this amazing conversation with our friend Kimberly Caraway.
Well, this is a long-awaited treat for the two of us because we have someone we greatly respect, but someone we also really enjoy, who is a dear friend, a gift to this community. In fact, I was thinking back to our first intersection, and that was my wife, you all have heard me say before, is a learning specialist, and she came home one day talking about this remarkable woman she loves, Kimberly Caraway, going on and on and on, and I remember her saying, quote, "You need to know her, David." And then I remember the first time, I can still remember where I was in the room when I came to hear you speak on supporting kids with ADHD, and I thought, my next thought was, every parent in this community needs to know you. It was so obvious from the get-go. Everything my wife had said about you was 100% true and then some. And we have simply experienced that over and over and over and over as we've sat with families who have spent time at your amazing place, kids who didn't feel like they were learners, who started to feel like they were.
Oh, that's so good to hear.
It's a snapshot of all the ways you have been a gift to our community.
Yes.
And so it feels so fun to have you in the room today. And we want to start with just having you tell us a little bit about you and how you found your way to this work.
It is so fun to be here. I just love being with y'all in any context. And thank you for saying all those things. It has been really just such a special gift in my life to realize the giftings that God has given me and just how he has brought all these different things to fruition that I would have never, ever seen coming. So I grew up in Birmingham, Alabama. And
one of our favorite spots.
It is. It's such a great city. And I wanted to teach school. And so that was my dream, to be a third grade teacher. And so went to Vanderbilt for college. And then I taught at Briarwood in Birmingham for several years and just felt like all my dreams had come true. And but as I was teaching, I had, so many different type kids in my class who struggled. And I just became fascinated with wanting to understand why, and how could I help the kid who cannot learn his multiplication facts, and why does this kid struggle with reading and this one doesn't, and all the answers that were in all the books were not enough for me, and so the Lord allowed me to go back to graduate school, and I got to study the intersection of neuroscience and education. And
you went to?
I went to Harvard graduate school. So
amazing.
That's just like you to leave that out.
No kidding.
I would lead with that in every conversation.
Yes.
I'd weave that in every time I talk to anyone.
I'm a little sad you said it because now I'm going to be intimidated for the next 30 minutes.
Oh my goodness, no. God just was like, I don't think anybody thought I would get into Harvard. And then I did. And the Lord was just like, I'm going to send you. And so I went and I loved it. And, just as his perfect timing is always perfect, when I was there, they were just starting a brand new field of study, which is back then it was more like neuroscience and education. And there were several professors there who were wanting to start an international group on mind, brain, and education. And the field of neuroscience was developing at such a rate that there was all this information out there, and educators didn't know how to use it, but it was certainly informative. And so I was able to start as a charter member of that international group, which was super small at the time. And then I just felt like I had found my niche. Like, this is what I wanted to do, was to help translate the neuroscience into usable knowledge for families, for kids, and teachers, because teachers do not know this stuff. And so they're not taught it. I mean, really, nobody knew this stuff, and I was just learning it. And so the field back then, that was probably 20-something years ago, and it has developed now to where, there's master's programs in it, and you can train in that all over. But at the time, there wasn't, you couldn't apply for a job anywhere in that field. And so I kind of got to create my own path. So moved to Nashville and set up a learning center at a school, and it's kind of like my little lab, and got to practice some of the things we were talking about, and then felt called to go out and just start a business where I could really get involved in the lives of kids and then train teachers. And so that was back in 2001 is when I started it in my kitchen with my roommate, Jen. And really, I don't think I had nearly the expectation of where it would go, but it's developed into, being an organization that gets to pour into the lives of kids and help support parents and really go in and love on teachers and help educate them on things that work and things that we know that work. And my goal is to provide just a lot of hope.
Well, you're certainly doing it, and you have done it for a lot of years. I mean, I was thinking, I feel like I have been referring folks to you forever.
I know. I was thinking of kids that we shared, back literally like probably 20 years ago that are now amazing adults.
I can still remember things kids would tell me that they learned from you, and how their eyes would just light up as they were connecting all of it. I'm just so grateful. And I think the fact that we have benefited from you in this community for so long, and that now Birmingham is too.
I know.
Is amazing.
It is so exciting that we opened up a business there a year ago in Cobb Heights, and
the name of your business
the Caraway
in both places.
Center for Teaching and Learning. So it's in Nashville and in Birmingham, and then we work with kids internationally and nationally. So when COVID hit, that opened up a lot of avenues of teaching over Zoom, which isn't ideal in a lot of ways, but it's also offered the ability to help coach some students and parents in different states and cities. So that was an unexpected blessing that came.
Yes, and you have this amazing book, which is between David and me right now, called Transforming Your Teaching.
Yeah.
And we love that you have done that you're helping equip educators too. We'd love for you to say a little bit about what you're hoping educators to gain from that.
Yeah, so I wrote this book probably about 10 years ago now, and I had several people ask me to write a book, and I don't like to read. So I was like, I don't really like to read, so I don't think I want to write a book.
It's amazing that you went to Vanderbilt and then Harvard and don't like to read.
I know. My mom always tried to get me to love it when I was a kid, and I just didn't. Anyway, so I went on my very first missions trip to Belize, and I had taught a bunch of teachers down there, and I got on a flight heading back and was just overwhelmed with the Lord's ask for me to write a book. That's all I could hear on the flight back is, I have given you all of this information and all of this creativity, and it is yours to be a steward of, and I want you to share it with the nations. And so I came back and thought, oh my goodness, I think I'll write a book, and I think I need to write a book. And so it was an opportunity to give it away, to people. And so ironically, the publisher contacted me about 2 months later after I returned from that flight, and out of the blue, I had actually ignored their email for a couple of weeks because I didn't think it was true. And they had asked me to write a book about this for professionals. And so I knew that was confirmation. The book itself was written really to be the book that I always wished I could pull off my shelf when I was a teacher. So when you're a teacher, you're tired, you're busy, you don't have time to do all this extra research, and you just need some immediate help for the next day. And so I wrote the book in such a way that it explains in very layman terms about, let's say, reading and how the brain reads and what functions are happening while you're reading. And then I just have a ton of interventions. So what do you do to help a kid who is struggling with fluency or with, remembering what they've read, or with comprehension or answering questions? And so there's chapters in there on attention and time management and, how to help kids who are procrastinating. I put a section in on test anxiety and how do you deal with anxiety during a test or preparing for tests. And then it, focuses on note-taking and how to prepare for tests. So while it's written for teachers to be able to pull off the shelf and, look up, how do I help this particular student with taking notes from a lecture, it's also been really helpful to parents. So because it helps them be able to flip to that section and say, okay, my child is struggling with paying attention while he's doing his homework or while she's in class. And what are some tips that we know are backed by science that would be really helpful? So I don't even think my parents have read all the way through the book. It's it's a long book, so it's meant to be a reference book.
I was going to say,
to flip
to
to
have so many
and find.
practical.
Yes.
Transforming your teaching. And where can they get it?
They can get it on Amazon, and they can get it on our website at carawaycenter.com.
Okay.
Or through Norton, WW Norton Press.
Wow.
They can get it from them, too.
Okay.
Go do that right now, parents and educators. And speaking of educators, having done this work for as long as you have, what would you say is different about education today than when you started the work decades ago?
Oh, yes. Oh, so much has changed. I think the biggest thing that I see is a change in understanding and mindset about learning. So, 20, 30 years ago, we used to believe that learning was fixed, and your cognitive abilities were fixed. And so, we all learned you grow up, you have a certain number of brain cells. If you drink, you kill brain cells. And then, that's all you got. And really what we have learned is that the brain changes over time. So God has created the brain to be what's called plastic. It's moldable, and it changes through experience. So every single experience is going to change the functionality and some of the structure inside the brain. And we now can see that through fMRI studies. We are able to look at pictures of the brain before a child has had intervention. And then now we see pictures of the brain and the way they're functioning after the intervention. And you can see the physical changes that have happened because of the intervention that has occurred. And we've learned that the brain develops new brain cells. So, what you have is not what you're going to end up with. It grows new cells. And so this is really what captivates me, and I think it's what's exciting about the season we're in right now with education, is that I've never met a child who cannot get better at something that he or she struggles with, because God has created a brain that changes over time and through experience. And so we may not know exactly how to change it or at what frequency or what intensity, but that's where we are in science and education right now, is figuring those things out. So it's really a hopeful season. I also think education has changed with technology. There's been this influx of technology, and it has changed the way we teach. It's changed the way kids are doing their homework. It's changed the way parents are, informed about things at school. And, it's changing at such a rate that I don't even think we know the consequences that we're going to face down the road. Some of my students that I work with, a lot of them have textbooks that are online. And, there's nothing necessarily in and of itself bad with online textbooks. But in terms of looking at it through learning, there's a lot of consequences that can come when you are reading a textbook online versus reading it in print. And so, for example, we've learned that when you're reading online, you skim. So your brain reads in what's called this F pattern. It reads across the top of the line, and then you drop down a little bit, and you read half of the line, then you drop down a little bit. And so you're really skimming and scanning when you're reading something online. And when you're reading on a printed text, you are doing something that's called close reading. So you're reading line by line and you're processing the information differently. Wow. And so, one of the implications for education with that is I see a lot of these kids that are trying to read Shakespeare online, and the comprehension is significantly lower. They don't score as well on tests. And so, that's an example.
Would you recommend that those parents get a physical book for their kids?
Yeah, so part of the stuff that we do is kind of helping parents make these wise decisions about when is it good to do it online and when is it good to do it in print. And so for any novel, for any complex text, I'm always recommending print. For kids who are struggling in any academic subject, I'm going to immediately recommend they order the hard copy textbook. And will
schools support that?
Schools will, yeah.
Okay,
I mean, they won't buy it for them, but they will often say that's fine. And so the kids are the ones that are a little bit more reluctant to try it. They don't see the need for it. But I mean, we can change a grade by probably 10 points just by adding some printed materials.
Wow.
Technology also, I think, just interferes so much because it's such a distraction. Yes. So, the students are on their laptops all day, and laptops are tempting no matter how many, attempts you do to, kind of lock it down so they can't get on different sites. Kids are smart, and they figure out ways to navigate around that. And, the research will just show that just that temptation to have multiple tabs open, even if it's checking ESPN stats or, how your fantasy football league is going, it's something that definitely interferes with their learning process. And so, I help my kids try to come up with a rule of only having 3 tabs open at a time. It could be their one tab that tells them what the work is and the assignment that they're working on. And then I'm trying to educate children to print out part of the assignment. And if kids who struggle with technology or addiction to technology, I especially don't want them on the tech as much as possible. So often having them print assignments and then maybe just go online to enter in the answers so that I can reduce the amount of time that they're online.
That's so helpful.
Yeah.
Sissy, have I told you that breakfast is my favorite meal of the day?
You have. You'd eat pancakes or waffles any time of day, given the option, wouldn't you?
I would. I love all breakfast foods all the time. This morning, I made a breakfast scramble, and I'm here to tell you it was incredible.
Did you make it in your green pan?
Yes, I did. It had sweet potatoes, peppers, tomatoes, sausage, bacon. I threw in some kale in an attempt to be healthy. It was amazing. And best of all, I didn't need a drop of oil because my food never sticks to my pans anymore now that I cook with green pan.
Did you get your slow cooker in the mail?
Yes, I just made brisket, and I used some of that to make brisket tacos with eggs.
Oh, of course you did. I can't get over how beautiful that slow cooker looks in my kitchen. Mine is cloud cream, but it's available in 8 colors, so there's definitely one that will complement every kitchen.
I love that with green pan, cleanup is so easy. I also love the in-pot browning. There's no more browning on your stove and then adding it to your slow cooker. With green pan, their slow cooker does it all at once.
I love that green pan is free from harmful substances. Green Pan's cookware are free of PFAS, PFOA, lead, and cadmium. Don't know what most of that means, but all you need to know is that your current cookware might be coated with forever chemicals, but green pans are free of all forever chemicals.
So toss those plastic pans and upgrade your cookware this holiday season with Green Pan. Head to greenpan.us and use promo code RBG and you'll receive 30% off your entire order, plus free shipping on orders over $99. That's right, 30% off.
So head to greenpan.us and make sure you use our promo code RBG or they won't know we sent you. Yes. So what other specific ways do you feel like parents can support their kids' academic journeys? And is there anything that you would say specifically to parents of younger kids or teenagers or both?
Yeah, I think, probably my first advice is to really make sure that your children know what they're really great at. When I meet with a student, my very first question is, tell me 3 things that you're really great at doing. Could be in school or it could be just at home or with your friends. And it's really interesting to me which ones who can name it and which ones don't know what their strengths are. And so I think throughout a kid's life, we're designed with different strengths and we all have different weaknesses. And so I love working with children and helping them understand, what are they really good at? They might be great at baking. They might be great at game design or, throwing a football or doing fractions. And so helping them verbalize that early on, I think is really important. The second thing that I would recommend is to really listen to your child. I think that when it comes to academics, parents often jump to conclusions and they think they know why the kid did this, or they, at least in my office, they'll jump in and they'll answer for the child. But kids know what they're having a hard time with. I mean, they're in school all day long. They know what's hard. They know what's difficult with teachers. They know why the math is hard for them or why they have a hard time with reading. And I think parents want their kids to be so good at all these things naturally, and get nervous when they are struggling with different things. And so one of the things that I just advise parents to do is really just ask a lot of questions and don't fill in the answers for them, but really just sit and listen. And if you listen long enough and you listen to what's being said over and over again, there's a reason they're saying that. And so that's an area at which, I'm going to dig in and press a little bit harder and figuring out how to help them. And, I think it's also hard for parents to let their kids fail and struggle. And, one of the most important things I've learned over life, doing this for so long, the kids who have learning differences, they are failing at so many things academically early on. And it is so beautiful to watch them develop into teenagers and adults because they have a resilience, they have the neural networks in their brain that know how to fail and how to get up and then move forward.
Yes.
And it is something that I am always just so jealous of in so many ways. I didn't fail a lot academically when I was a little kid. And, everybody fails at 1,000 different things in their life, but learning how to walk through failure, you're going to learn it as an adult or you're going to learn it as a teenager or as a kid. And so I think my advice to parents would be to really, when they're young and they're so resilient, to let them fail. If they leave their book at home in elementary school, don't bring it to them. Just, kind of cringe and just be like, I can't do it. And, if you're helping them with math problems, don't jump in so quickly and tell them how to do it and solve the problem. Like, the struggle is what's really important. And so I often compare it to like learning to ride a bike where, when you're learning to ride a bike, it's messy. Like, you don't expect the kid to get on the bike and just like ride the bike. You're going to fall, you're going to wiggle, you're going to wobble, you're going to get one good roll in, and then you're going to fail again. And that is really what learning looks like. And so you have to have the opportunity to fail in order to learn. And so I think we try to save them from feeling bad about themselves when they fail. And instead, it robs them of learning how to manage that. And so, I encourage parents to just think about it like learning to ride a bike, where I'm going to help coach them. I'm going to be there with them. I'm not going to let them fall too hard. I'm going to keep them safe, but I've got to let them learn in the middle here and then they'll take off and then they'll know.
Yes.
So that's
so good.
Yes.
That's definitely some of that
advice. Can I throw in a question along those?
Yeah.
I feel like I'm sitting with more perfectionistic girls than I ever have.
Oh, absolutely. I totally agree.
Yes. And one of the things I will say to them sometimes, backing up from school, but they're definitely perfectionistic about school, is I'll say, what's the lowest A at your school? And they'll say 94. And I'll say, what does it look like to go for a 94 in life?
Yes.
That's
a great
give
comment.
up.
I love it.
But what do you tell
perfectionistic
kids? Because I think we need to know too. We see so many.
Oh, yes. I feel like I call myself a recovering perfectionist because I was definitely that perfectionistic girl. So I work with a lot of girls who fall into that category, and a lot of moms who fall into that category too. And, I think the conversation we have a lot is at what cost is this going to come? And so, when we're striving to get the A in a particular class, we'll kind of lay it out and evaluate, like, what are we going to have to give up to get this A? And what are we going to have to do to get the A? So, sometimes it's not that much. I mean, it's an hour of studying, and they can work hard and they can do well there. And then other times they're going to miss being able to go out with their friends, and they're not getting rest, and they're staying up really late at night. And so, we'll name a lot of those consequences that are going to come, and then kind of helps them be able to at least decide, like, okay, this is maybe worth it or maybe not. I think also valuing, I celebrate a lot of their playtime. So I think just conversationally with my perfectionist, when they come in and they have done something that's not typical for them, and they really played, or they took the night off, or they didn't do it, I'm helping to teach them how to be praised for something other than academics. So I will celebrate, I'm so proud of you for not staying up late and finishing that last night, which is counterintuitive to their brain, but that has helped a lot. And
so good.
I think with a lot of these girls too, when they get a grade back and they're really disappointed academically in their grade, one of the most helpful strategies I use with them is I'll ask them, how true is this statement that you're saying to yourself? So they'll say, I'm a failure. I'm going to fail this class, and then I'm not going to be able to get into the school that I want to get into. And this might be a 7th grader that's concerned they won't get into Princeton.
Yes.
And so I'm like, how true is it that this grade is going to keep you out of Princeton? And they'll be like, well, it could. And I'm like, okay, they'll say 90% true in their mind. And then I'll say, well, what percent of helpfulness is this? How helpful is this? And they'll rate that and say, well, it's probably not helpful for me to think that way. And so that's been really effective.
That's great.
Also with perfectionism, I often think if I ever wrote another book, the name of the book would be The Art of Making a B. Because
please write that.
It really is this thing that you have to learn how to make a B. And for those kids that are so used to A's, like, there's so much value in learning how to make a B. And it is an art. You've got to learn what to give up, what to skip, what's more important in life. And so, and I had that experience at Harvard. I had this one big paper due, and I knew that if I stayed up all night and finished it and worked on it all weekend, I could get an A+. And I had all A's up to this point. And so, but there was this guy, and I wanted to go out with this guy, and he finally asked me out the night before my paper was due.
Wow.
And I remember having this moment of thinking, if I go out with him, I am not going to make an A. And I thought, I'm doing it. I'm going for it. I'm just going to go out with him, and I'm going to choose differently. And I made a B+, and I was so proud of it because I was so proud of myself for choosing something other than what I had always chosen.
Yes.
And, I don't think I ever saw him after that, but but it's a story I always remember. So I tell my kids that a lot and encourage them to just, let's be successful in some other areas of life other than just academics. So
Such great reminders. David?
Yes?
Why are you wearing an apron?
I've been thinking about opening a restaurant.
I'm worried you've been watching too many episodes of The Bear.
I have. Will you refer to me as chef from time to time?
No.
Seriously, though, I am starting to think of myself as a bit of a chef. Every plate is helping me convince my family that I know what I'm doing in the kitchen. They make it so easy.
They absolutely do. What have you made lately?
I just made the saucy cumin lime chicken tacos. They were saucy, spicy, and spectacular.
It's finally getting cold in Nashville, and I made the hearty chicken sausage and kale soup.
That sounds amazing. Well, and Thanksgiving is just around the corner. And if you are hoping to budget your food expenses this holiday season, get more bang with your bite with America's Best Value Meal Kit. Every plate is 25% cheaper than grocery store shopping with no hidden fees, so you can add more items to your cart for delicious holiday meals. Plus, only pay for what you need with pre-portioned ingredients.
Enjoy wholesome, filling meals with loved ones this holiday with Family Style. Every Plate's new selection of hearty recipes featuring a protein-packed main dish and not one but two scrumptious sides. The more the merrier.
Choose Every Plate over takeout to save money while still enjoying fresh, satisfying meals. Their meals are 50% cheaper than your average fast casual meal. They're the easiest way to eat affordably. Put the money you save toward making holiday plans.
And if you're craving steak, Every Plate is introducing a $1 steak for life. Add a 10-ounce ranch steak to your weekly order for only $1.
Get a meal for $1.49 plus $1 steaks by going to everyplate.com/podcast and entering code 49RBG.
That's up to $110 value.
Yes, it is. Get a meal for $1.49 plus $1 steaks by going to everyplate.com/podcast and entering code 49RBG.
Subscription must be active to qualify and redeem $1 steak.
Well, and this is such a picture of the differences we so often see in our offices that you would ask about perfectionistic girls who are overperforming. I'm about to ask a question about boys who are underperforming, and I see a lot of that. I sit with a lot of frustrated parents in that space, and I have, Kimberly, long talked about the journey of training boys to be independent learners and how easy I think it is to accidentally be training a dependent learner. And so I would love to hear your thoughts in that space, and also anything that you would say parents could be doing, again, accidentally, even from a place of being well-intentioned and wanting good things for him, but getting in the way of that long game of training an independent learner or developing an independent learner.
Yes. Oh, no, I love that question because that is my goal. And in our office, I always say my job is to work myself out of a job. I want to see you, I want to help you, I want to equip you, and then I don't want you to have to come back and see me again. And I want you to become this independent learner. And I see a lot of boys in that same way. And, boys are, and girls also, really, my biggest thing that I tell to parents is the brain is developing, right? The brain of a fifth grader is not the same brain as an adult brain. The brain of a 15-year-old is very different from that of a 25-year-old. And we know that the brain is changing over time. And we know that the brain changes from experience. And so because of that, these skills that we want them to develop, those skills have to receive a lot of repetition and practice. So often when it comes to studying for tests, one of my big questions about studying for tests, when you've got a mom that's helping her son study for a test, I'm always asking, whose brain is doing more of the work? So is he rolling around on the floor and you're calling out the questions, and y'all are studying and you're holding the study guide, you're reading the questions, you're telling him if he's right or wrong. He's saying, how much longer? Okay, are we done yet? Mama, I already know this. I'm going to go to the bathroom. Wait, why do we have to keep doing this?
Yes.
And so,
I bet there's so many people who think, how does she see inside my home right now. Feel like you have a camera.
It is almost every home. And so mom, at some point in the process gets excited because mom's now understanding why the water cycle works the way it does. And, the kid is just regurgitating answers back and forth. It's like, if I say this, then, I've answered the question and we can move on. And at some point, the kid answers enough of the questions and it's dinner time and mom's got to go do this. And so they're done. And, oftentimes the kid comes back the next day and says, or we get the grade back and the mom looks at it and says, I don't understand. You knew all this. What happened? You knew it last night. And so there's so many things that could happen in that test-taking experience. But one of the big questions I ask is, whose brain knew more of it? Was it your brain that knew a lot of it? And the brain stores information in different areas. So when you're learning something and you're looking at it, that visual information is stored in the back of the brain and the visual cortex. And when you're listening to it, it's stored in the auditory cortex. And so I'm always looking at the child's brain thinking, where is this information getting stored? Is it getting stored visually? Is it getting stored auditorily? Are you having experience actually writing it down? And so I think in developing independent learners, you've got to have the kid's brain doing more of the work than your brain is doing. And that makes sense when you think about like studying for a spelling test. Like the kid actually has to be the one practicing that and rewriting words and, going over it every night to get ready for the test. What we don't compare it to is like executive function skills, which include, cueing and directing and planning and organizing and reflecting and basically anything that a seventh grader is not good at is what executive function skills are. And so, I always am talking to parents because I'm like, if you're the one that is organizing the backpack, your brain is getting so strong in organizing and planning and putting things in the right place. You're making visual memories of where you put that sheet of paper. You think you're helping your kid, but you're not. The child has got to be the one that puts the papers in the backpack. The child's brain has got to be the one that gets better at organizing. And so with, boys especially, it's making them stop and do it themselves. And it's really hard for parents because lots of the moms that are really on top of it and very organized, they are blessed with children who are not. And they want to jump in and they want to get the thrill of doing it. But we rob the kid of getting the thrill of doing it. And we rob the kid of the ownership of, I put this binder together. I organized it. And of course, the kid's going to complain while they're doing it. They're not going to see the value of it initially, but it requires repetition. I would also say that, it's really important, especially for the teenage boys and high school boys, that we give them a lot of choice. So often I see parents really dictating how you're going to study, when you're going to study. You need to make note cards this way, this night. And I went out and bought this planner, and I want you to use this planner. And so I like flipping it, where I'm like, I do not want you to go buy the planner for the child. I want you to take the child and have the child pick out the planner. Child knows how much space they need. Let the child own that. Also just, when you are planning out the schedule for the week, don't plan out what they're going to do every night for homework. Make them plan it. You can speak into it and help guide them and remind them, but make them do it, make them write it. And that is going to help. That empowers the kid, that equips the student, that builds those neural networks so that they're then capable of doing the harder things that come later. It's during that time of 7th grade, 8th grade, 9th grade, that the brain is going through major changes. Changes that are more significant than the changes in infancy. And I love explaining this to parents because we totally accept it that a 7th grade boy might be, this tall. the 8th grade girl might be this tall, and, which is 2 feet taller than the boy, or the boy, we would never match up, a boy who's really short with a really tall boy in 7th grade in a wrestling match. Like, it just would not be fair. And we're doing that all the time cognitively. In the same way that height differences and shape differences are changing at such rapid rates during the season, cognitive changes are happening as well. But we expect all of our kids, because they just entered 7th grade, to be able to do 7th grade work. And that's just not the way it is. And so, I also like to encourage parents that if you have students that struggle with attention issues, some of the executive function, really in terms of the brain development with those executive functions, you're about 2 years behind your peer group. And so if you've got a 15-year-old, I really talk with parents about, what would you expect of a 13-year-old? And that's what I'd hold them accountable for right now. We're going to teach them how to get to the 15-year-old task, and we're not going to let them get away with it. We're going to help support them. But where's that margin of what you're expecting versus what they're capable of? And how do you need to narrow that gap based on their learning profile? Some of those tips.
This is so good.
Okay. We've made an executive decision right here between the two of us.
Yes,
we looked at
have.
each other, and I could tell exactly what was going on in your new neural pathways over there. And it was exactly what was happening in mine, which is we are not going to let this rich, helpful, life-giving conversation stop. So rather than cutting the interview short, you're about to thank us. We are going to land the plane on what we'll call part A of the episode, and we are going to offer part B, because we know with a lot of certainty that you all are taking notes right now, thinking, please say more. Don't stop giving these great practical ideas. And so we're not. We're going to pause at part A, and then we're going to have a second part to our rich, important conversation with Kimberly Caraway.
Did you love today's episode? If so, would you mind sharing it with a friend? Send a quick text or email with the link to the show.
Join us next time for another episode where we'll bring you help and hope on your journey of raising boys and girls.